Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization, Dirt Road Roundtable Drive. This is our form of a podcast. Driving in and out of these Bigfoot sighting locations. Might as well do a podcast. You guys get to see the greater area while we discuss anything Bigfoot or what's going on in the area regarding Bigfoot wildlife. I'm up here on top of Monte Cristo, Utah. A couple dozen Bigfoot sightings that I know of up here on this mountain. Lower down on the mountain, I had one last year. He was in my rear view mirror. Only like 30 or 40 feet back there. Stared at it a second or two in my mirror like, what the hell? Thinking it was a person at first. That's the first thing my mind wanted to think. And as I was absorbing it, just as I blurted out, there's something... Oh, actually I said, there's a guy standing there behind us. It bolted to the left, and as soon as I got that out, I realized it wasn't a guy. And I dove for the handheld camera that sits right next between Jenny and I. I'm alone today, by the way. I grabbed that camera and bailed out. When I was grabbing the camera, Jenny could tell by my face, she's like, that wasn't a guy. Yep, I took off running back there, getting the camera on. It was standing on an embankment on the other side of the road. The back of my truck was facing the road. I pulled in a pull-off so that Janie and I could relieve ourselves. And when we got back in the vehicle, that's what I saw in the mirror, and it was really creepy because what was going through my mind in that 2 seconds, part of it was, that's pretty creepy. Was he watching us pee? Well, if he was watching anyone, it was me. I didn't really hide. I kind of just stood off the front of my vehicle, off to the left of it. And Jenny went off and hid in the trees or whatever. But that was kind of creepy. But anyways, it bolted out of the frame of my mirror and rear view window into the thick of the trees, and it was standing behind a tipped over tree or a log. But when I went running up to the log it was standing behind, the log hit me about the belly button. And it was on the opposite side, and I could see the top of the gap between its thighs and crotch area. I could clearly see that over the log when I was looking in the rear view. I knew that it was a Bigfoot by the time I bailed out of the car, and then when I went up to that log, then I realized how extremely big it was. It had to have stood over 7 feet tall for me to be able to, because, you know, it was hitting me in the belly button. You know, I had a foot between my belly button and the top of my thighs, where, you know, I'm seeing a good gap. So it was probably 2 feet taller than me, at least, close to that. Yeah, it was very dark brown. Well, anyway, I never did see it again, nor did I hear it or anything. Jenny and I tracked it, and we found 2 different sized tracks, so there was probably 2 in the area. We tracked it to private property. The tracks at the private property, it was actually crossing over the fence from private property onto public lands. I mean, I'm not going to trespass on anyone's property, but it wasn't going to there. We just found a spot where it come from that property onto public lands. We could see its footprint on the other side of the fence. Stepped over the fence, leaped, whatever. It's cool when you find a place where it hops or jumps across a river or a log or a fence. And it may not even have to leap, just a step, but usually when it does that, where it comes down is usually where you'll find some of your deepest, best impressions, I've discovered. Yeah, some of the best ones, like 3 or 4 of the very best ones, is when it's leaped across the river. I mean, maybe a giant running leap probably wouldn't make it for me. Maybe a small hop for a big Sasquatch, who knows. I'm getting 4 cameras and I'm relocating it. They enacted some laws in Utah and I need to abide by those, so I'm collecting them. Not supposed to have them out during big game hunts like deer, elk, stuff like that. So anyways, I'm collecting them, I'm moving them to different states. Private properties where you can't hunt. Yeah, I can only have these cameras out for 3 more days. And because we got some other Bigfoot expeditions going on, I decided to come up today and collect those. Everybody else is at work today. I took an extra day off. Saw something interesting. I'm going to take a couple of pictures that direction, zoom in. My cameras, my binoculars and telescope, used to glass with binoculars and then switch to the camera, and I'd rather zoom in with the camera. No switching, having to find it again, all that. From this mountaintop, those mountains clear over there in front of us, kind of to the right, probably even directly in front of us, is Wyoming. Then to the left, which is directly north of us, is Idaho. We're really close to where the 3 states meet. Yeah, there's some Bigfoot sighting locations in Wyoming, Idaho, North Nevada. I like to keep game cameras. Alright, up here on my left, where there's this bend, about 50 feet up that way. I know of a guy personally, him and his girlfriend at the time, that observed a giant Bigfoot. Guesstimates 9 feet. We also come and did yeah, it's just off to the left over here. Let me turn the camera, probably don't help. Anyway, off that way. That really scared his girlfriend. She was motivating him to go faster to get out of here after they observed it. Yeah, they sat and watched it as they went around that corner, And then he stopped to back up after they couldn't see it anymore. She wouldn't even let him get it into reverse. She's like, leave now. Alright, this is interesting. I put up a picture of an artwork rendition of a Bigfoot sitting down. And I did that on the RMSO Facebook page. And at the time, we had 118,000 followers, subscribers, whatever you want to call them. And so I put that out there and I asked the question, what was the Bigfoot doing when you spotted it? And so far, like 180 people have commented on there, and some of them are really interesting. You know, some people just one sentences, others paragraphs about their Bigfoot sightings. But a lot of people will join groups like that or follow channels that investigate Bigfoot. They become enthusiasts after they have an encounter or see the creature. So it's fun every once in a while to put a question out like that and see the responses you get. Okay, well, I did that yesterday, and one guy talked about his Bigfoot sighting really close to where I am right now. 4 days ago, Jenny and I just got back from an expedition where he saw the creature. And it's about 20-25 miles from where we're at right now. Same continuous forest, but it's barely on the Idaho side of the border, or right on the border is where the guy watched it. And he observed it walking on the forest line on one of those shell boulder fields. And if you've ever had to walk across one of those, it's a very difficult maneuver. It sucks. I try to avoid them if at all possible. I don't like having to go across one of those, and it made it across pretty easily to cover. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. Any of you guys watching that commented on that, I read every one of the comments on there. I put a thumbs up on each one of them to let you guys know I'm reading your comments. I've got so much gear and stuff in my car, or truck, whatever you want to call it. But on these dirt roads, it's hard to get all the rattles out for you. There we go. Let's see if that helps. The area that guy had his sighting, we have found dozens and dozens and dozens of Bigfoot tracks over the last couple of years. And then we found a really good one probably 10 years ago in that same area. But what got us back into the area about a year and a half, 2 years ago, is a guy and his son filmed a really spectacular Bigfoot, in my opinion, in Logan Canyon in the Sinks area. And we weren't on the scene until about 5 days later. It took this guy to show the video to a friend, and the friend's a Bigfoot enthusiast. The friend knew about our group. He emailed us the video the guy filmed, and we discussed it with him that night. The very next morning, Jenny and I were there to investigate. He didn't even have to tell us where it was at, because we've been all over that area. Both of us recognized the spot. I sat and watched it, recognized the spot, and then when I showed Jenny, Jenny's like, oh my gosh, that's the Sinks. And I was like, yeah. It is. So we jetted up there the very next morning to investigate. Okay, it snowed the very night after the guy filmed it. And then a couple of days later, a few days later, we show up after they get a hold of it. I mean, we showed up at the very first daylight opportunity. And we showed up unannounced. We didn't tell this guy we were going to show up. And we get to the spot, and we're scouting out the exact spot. And he kind of told us where they had stopped the truck and filmed it. And we were looking for that spot. And there were some people there on a walkie-talkie. And they're talking to another guy, and we see him out where the Bigfoot was, and they're trying to get him into this spot. And I'm like, oh my heck, these guys are here investigating it too. And then I stopped and started talking to him, and it was the guy that emailed me the night before, getting one of the people that filmed it in the location so that they could do a size comparison. And that was really cool to me, because it told me right away that, hey, they ain't yanking my leg. They're up here looking for answers too. If they had been involved in faking that, why would they be looking for answers? They wouldn't need to. They know what's going on. So anyway, we're like, hey, do you mind if we get involved? So yeah, they got him into the spot, and they got him almost perfectly there. There was a dried creek bed that was walking beside, so that made it easier. And then there was also a clearing in the sagebrush along there. So in my opinion, from the couple of 100 yards away, they got him right there. So we were able to do some size comparisons. The guy that we put down there, he is 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. He was dwarfed by this thing, he was dwarfed by this thing. It was like double his width, double his thickness and girth, and it appeared to be a good couple of feet taller than him. Yeah, I'm putting the Bigfoot, I'm just going to put it about the 7.5 foot size, so maybe 16 inches taller than him by the comparison. So that was pretty good. That was really neat. So that got us back into the area. And then we started finding tracks. We started spreading out from his area. We didn't find much. I mean, we found indentions that had been washed away from the snow, but it's hard to explain that. Footprints that had been washed away, so you can't like definitively say. And so we started spreading out from there, and Jenny suggested, hey, let's go up that canyon. It was heading in that direction where we found footprints before, and there's 4 Bigfoot sightings right there. So we keep an eye on the area. We get in there, we find dozens and dozens of Bigfoot tracks, casted them. It's happened like that over the last year and a half since it happened. Every once in a while we're in there, we start finding footprints, so we're keeping a close eye on that area. Yeah, some one-off Bigfoot sighting in a random area, cool. But when you have a history of them, 40, 50 years of them, people are still seeing it in an area, you know, that's when I start taking an area seriously. I don't think all 12 different people over the last 40 years, all of them are making it up. And then when you find corroborating evidence, footprints, yeah, that was pretty cool, finding footprints within a couple of miles of the filming location. Yeah, we didn't give up just because they got washed away right there before we could get up there. Good chance the Bigfoot's still in the area. We're pulling the cameras down. It's faster than servicing them. Yeah, there's a lot of great spots for cameras I would like to watch. More than one area, over 20 game cameras. That's about as many as I'm personally willing to manage. Most of the cameras I service twice a year, some of them 3 times a year, depending on the location, and then reviewing the footage and all that once you get it home. I mean, it's a double-edged sword too. One good thing about the cameras is it gets you in the area more, and one bad thing about the cameras is it gets you obligated to an area when sometimes you want to go check out a new place. I've got a friend that had a Bigfoot sighting several years ago. He saw Bigfoot watching him at his campfire. He was camping alone at a place called Hellcat Springs. He hiked in there, backpack camping. Once he observed the creature, it observed him, and he's estimating that it was at least 9 feet tall. He wanted to leave, but he would have to leave the security of his campfire, his things, and do the hike in the dark with that creature out there. So yeah, he stayed the night, rest of the night, had a sleepless night. So that's one of the reasons why I've kept some cameras around that Hellcat Spring area, and then there's some other springs on top of this mountain where people have actually seen them picking the weeds inside the spring. Another guy and his wife elk hunting and set up a blind. They set up a blind at the spring to scope the spring, and Bigfoot come up and started drinking water out of it. He could have shot the creature. He had it in its scope. Hunters are generally 99.999% of hunters, they don't shoot something unless they have a tag for it. You just don't shoot anything. And I know there's the crowd out there is like, somebody's got to harvest one. Well, then you're gonna need to do it, because a lot of people do not want to after they see it. Maybe it's too human-like, but me, for instance, I used to hunt, and I felt bad enough for the animal that I was having to kill. I don't want to kill another animal or anything that I don't have a reason to. You know, the game that I would kill was for food. Yeah, we ate everything that we fished for and that we hunted. And I know a lot of people will get food at a grocery store and they're disconnected from that. But you're still eating something that someone had to put down. But yeah, I don't want to hurt a Bigfoot unless I feel like my body or life is under threat. in 2011, I believe it was, the first time we found Bigfoot tracks ever in Sasquatch Canyon. Yeah, I believe whatever left the footprints, and we was casting one of them, 17 inches long, the one that we was casting, 8-inch toe splay, over 5 inches, like close to 6 inches where it tapered at the hill. I mean, just giant footprints, and it had jumped a river is where we got the really good one. God, that sunk in like 4 inches deep. Great toes. And we found that about an hour before the sun was going down. It was damp, wet, and cold. And something started stomping up in the tree line back and forth while we were casting it, waiting for the cast to set up. It was pretty intimidating, breaking branches and stuff. We eventually, before the sun went down, we hiked up to where it was stomping around, and then it got quiet, and you could hear it sneak back into the draw hiding from us. And we got to where it was stomping around, and it was just thick vegetation, foliage up to your waist, smashed down, and you could see, branches and stuff broke, but we could not find definitive tracks and everything. And then we went back a little ways into the draw looking for it. Didn't see a dang thing. No other tracks. Plus, it was just this type of stuff that we're in right now, off to the sides. It doesn't leave very good tracks, especially if it doesn't want to leave them. And then I wanted to get back down to the river to our cast before the sun went down. I didn't want to be stuck out with this thing at night, just Jenny and I. Well, we get down to the river, and because it's damp and cold, the cast wasn't setting up. And by the way, it was foam, that insulation foam. That was back before we knew any better. We watched a podcast where people, suggested it. That way you could do like a long track line, cast materials, heavy, all that. Well, that casting material just does not stop expanding, and it didn't really work that well. Maybe it was our technique or whatever, but I've never used that foam again since. Well, it was tacky and wasn't setting up, and then the sun went down. But before the sun went down, it come back to the same spot in the tree line where you can't see it, but you can hear it, just making a ruckus. Well, the very first time it did it, before we went up to investigate, just as it started up, I thought like an elk, a moose, something big like that was coming down to the river to drink. And I'm watching the tree line where it should come out, and it don't. It just paces back and forth. Kept it up for a long time, and then started doing it again when we went back down there. So after the sun went down, I dug the cast up, and we carried it across the river. We had to cross the river, by the way. Cross the river to the vehicle, and we left. And never did see what was making all that intimidating noise. But we suspect it could have been what left the Bigfoot tracks there. Yeah, that was our first experience finding tracks in Sasquatch Canyon. Yeah, a lot of people call that a bluff charge. Altogether, before and after we went up and pushed it back, it probably kept it up for 20 minutes to half an hour combined. Yeah, we came back a week later with Brody, his girlfriend at the time, Mike, Shannon, of course Jenny, Derek. We come back and started searching the area. We didn't find, there was a lot of rain, by the way, between that day and a week later. Well, a week later we come back and started investigating, and probably 100 yards from where we casted the footprint down by the river, we found what a lot of people call a Bigfoot structure, teepee style structure. Now I've never seen a Bigfoot make one. I haven't seen a Bigfoot destroy one. But a lot of people think that the Bigfoot are making them. Some of the Native Americans think these teepee style are territorial, and then they also, each log in those is indicative of each member in their family group or tribe or whatever. When a new Bigfoot is born, supposedly they'll put another log in the structure. Well, it was at that point in time that we're like, hey, maybe there's something to these structures. So we started to GPS map overlay the big ones. Not these little Boy Scout ones that you see people posting. I'm talking big ones that have no rhyme or reason why several big men would throw together, on an incline where it doesn't make sense for shelter, in a weird spot. I mean, we find them in these places, so we started GPSing them and coming back and checking them annually at least in 2 different Bigfoot sighting hotspots, including Sasquatch Canyon and the structure that we found where we casted them. We have witnessed them adding a log to the structures. Yeah, we show up, we know what they look like, we've documented them with video and photo, and then you see a new one. Well, both times that we've seen a new one, we've been able to find where the log had been laying on the ground, the indentation. So we saw where it's moved. I don't think the wind is picking those up off the ground and whipping them perfectly into place. So someone is putting them in place. The other place is up in Yellowstone Canyon, where there's some structures that we keep an eye on up there at the top of the Uintas. Yeah, Uintas, in my opinion, collectively, the little towns, camping places surrounding those mountains, in the mountains, there's dozens and dozens of Bigfoot sighting reports that just go back decades and decades. Yeah, I know of some that made it in the newspapers and television over 50 years ago, or nearly 50 years ago, excuse me. Great place to search for Bigfoot. It's tough up there, though. 11,000 feet is usually where we're hiking at those structures. Yeah, I have to, sometimes on those hikes, take several steps and then sit. Breathe. Yeah, my body starves for oxygen just sitting in the car at 11,000 feet. Okay, the trippy thing about the Sasquatch Canyon structure is it's like a structure complex. Maybe it's indicating like a tribe of them or something like that, because there's like 3 different host trees, and usually when you find these structures, they're just one host tree, and then the teepee structure, there's like 3 of them, and one of them's huge, and then there's a medium-sized one, and then a small one down the hill. Well, the bigger complex, I got 2 cameras on them, or had cameras at that structure for probably 7 years, maybe longer. Well, we had those cameras up when that log was added. However, it was added to the smaller structure that was kind of a little bit lower elevation than the bigger one. It wasn't in the range of either of the cameras that I had set up. So was that on purpose to avoid the camera, or was it on purpose for a different reason? Maybe that small one's a new family in the clan. That one I wasn't taking seriously because it just had one log up in the living host tree, a deadfall log. And clear up there, I mean, it's like a 20-25 foot long log. And then that's where we saw that it added a second one. Somebody. No rhyme or reason, so. And that's just below the major structure, which is maybe the center of the structure complex is maybe 20, 30 feet away. Some of the structures up at Yellowstone Canyon we have documented on film and photo tracks around them. Okay, some of these structures that we take seriously, they'll encompass an area with like mountaintop water sources, like mountaintop springs, and food. The Yellowstone Canyon ones and the ones in Bear Wallow that we keep an eye on, there will be like a triangle shape area where there's 3 structures and maybe cover like a half a square mile or whatever. And inside of them is usually a lot of food sources, as in nuts and berries. And then, of course, nuts and berries bring in the game animals too. So those areas we keep an eye on. We often wonder, is if the Bigfoot are making them, are they telling other Bigfoot, hey, this is my food, this is my water, eat rocks, go find your own area. Now, I've always read about these territorial groves that people think the alpha Bigfoot does, where it gets saplings, and it likes these aspen and birch saplings the most to do it. But they'll do like an orchard worth of them. They'll snap them up off as high as they can and as thick as they can. And I think it shows size and strength. A lot of people say, hey, they look a lot like us. I mean, bigger, hairy, but I mean humanoid. And we look like them. Maybe they think that we know their language, or we should. Well, anyway, those are very aggressive territorial places, maybe breeding rights, I don't know. We have discovered around some of these places in Bigfoot sighting locations where people get aggressive encounters, like a place in west of Bear Lake where there was a couple of very aggressive Bigfoot encounters over a 10-year period. We go in and check it out right there, where both sets of people had their aggressive sighting encounters. There's territorial grove snap-offs. Yeah, is it a coincidence? Or do they corroborate each other? Who knows? Yeah, the 2 encounters. One was a police officer. He was off duty at the time, and he got stuck back in there off of the main road in the snow, and he decided just to sleep in his truck and dig out in the morning. He watched a Bigfoot sneak up near his vehicle and pee where he had been relieving himself. It sniffed where this guy had been urinating and then peed right on it. So even though it snuck up to his vehicle, didn't bother him or his vehicle, but it peed on top of where he was peeing. That's an aggressive maneuver. I think it's like showing dominance, or like, no, this isn't your area, it's my area. That was right at the edge of this territorial grove of aspens. Then, nearly 10 years later, a couple of guys were camping there. two guys, their two hunting dogs, and very basic camp. They pulled off of a dirt road that's crappier than the one I'm on now. And they pulled off on a flat spot area and made a little fire circle and all that. Well, they put a tarp under the truck, and them and their dogs were going to sleep under the truck. The dogs freaked out on something in the trees, and so they kind of sicked their dogs on it, and the dogs come out after it, and it roared, chased their dogs back to the tree line, started stomping back and forth at the tree line. And I guess these hunting dogs had never acted in that type of fear before. They were rolling on the ground at the two owners' feet, just in fear. And so these guys started shooting at the creature roaring, stomping around, seeing its silhouette, Bigfoot shaped right there. And they started firing shots and stuff, and drove it off. But even after they, had shot at it, it slowly backed away. It didn't tear off away. That very crazy aggressive. Well, I tell you how I like checking Bigfoot sighting hot spots. I've been investigating an area, and when I start out investigating an area, I start looking around at reported Bigfoot sightings in the area, find as many as I can, and I saw that these two guys were related as at the actual same spots. Reported almost 10 years difference. So I'm like, I want to go see that. And that territorial grove of aspens is like a half an acre, 3/4 of an acre, whatever it is. And there's a couple of dozen, over 2 dozen snap-offs, all 8, 10, 12 feet tall, 3, 4, 5-inch saplings, and it shows a history of them. Didn't do it all at one time. It's like every time it comes through, it snaps a few more. Some attempts where it rainbows them over because it doesn't break. Whatever, I don't know. Maybe there's a relation, maybe there's not. It's pretty weird how it's just in that little nearly acre grove and none of the forest around it. And it happens to be right at the grove where both of these guys had their terrifying deals. Terrifying encounter. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this dirt road roundtable drive. I've got 4 or 5, I think it's 5 cameras that I'm collecting. Keep on watching, we're going to keep on squatching.